Okay, so I am recording this session right now. Just to kind of those of you that are still entering in, if you can go ahead and check in simply by in the chat box typing your name and your campus. If you are central office or support staff, then you can also just put your position. That's fine. Catch everybody up. I will be recording this. This is being recorded right now, and the link, hopefully, once all of the buffering and everything goes on, once it's available, I will be posting that on the home page of eSPED. So where all the news, every time I say, hey, progress reports need to be archived, or hey, a monthly clean is coming up, in that news section, that home page of eSPED is where this information, once the recording is available and the updated how-to is available, I'll let y'all know that. Right now, there is a how-to in the district resources. It is simply something that teachers probably aren't aware of because it's not in the how-to ARD folder. It's in the how-to folder for SimSlurps. Sorry, guys, trying to readjust my chair. So there is something there. I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I wanted to make sure that y'all had as much detail and information as possible. So I'm trying to get that updated version approved and out to you guys as soon as possible. Okay. I see somebody that's saying I can't hear you. I did do a sound check earlier. You may want to make sure that your sound is up, your audio settings on your computer are up. I am not a technical guru for this, other than to ask those out there if y'all have experienced the same problem, not being able to hear the presenter. If y'all have suggestions, you may want to respond in the chat. I'm seeing that the sound is going in and out for me. So this is what it could be. If it is lagging, or you see the video going and then my voice picks up again, I will say that's a connectivity issue, and it may be my connectivity issue. It may be a Zoom platform issue, or it may be your connectivity, your Wi-Fi. I've been experiencing this with my own children as they've been doing Zoom. So I just ask you to bear with us. If the recording is unbearable, then of course I'll try to do it again and shoot something else out to you guys. We're doing the best we can with what we have at our availability right now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start by sharing my screen. So give me just a second here. I'm going to switch over to right here. Okay, is everybody seeing my, oh, I don't want to see my face over here. Okay. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I don't have, I'm going to close the chat right now. So hopefully what you're seeing right now, I see that I'm sharing, so I've got confirmation down here. I have logged in as if I'm a special education teacher, so everything that y'all see once we get into the notice itself should be what y'all see. It shouldn't be anything that's unfamiliar to you. So I start out. Once I log in, I'm on my home page. This is where I'm telling you that if and when that new document is available through district resources, once it gets posted here in district resources, I will put a blurb here in the news, and I will also be linking today's training, the recording. I'll be linking that here as well. So as soon as that's available, it'll be posted right here. Okay, so getting started, how to get to your Notice of ARD. We click on Special Education, and then I go to Notices. I go straight into the Notices sub-application. So I'm clicking there for getting me into Notices. I apologize, guys, if y'all are chatting and asking me questions right now. I'm not putting that chat box up in my view, so otherwise it's going to obscure some of the content on my screen. Okay, so I'm going to go into a sample fake student. I'm going to select my student, click on their name to get into the notices sub-application for that student. I'm going to select the correct FERPA reason for you guys that when you're creating an ARD, I'm writing the student's IEP is absolutely appropriate. And that it takes me to the standard student information screen. You can make sure here, if you need to, that this information for your contact information or your address is correct, but really I kind of forgo that because that is getting uploaded every night. It's getting synced with iText. So what's in iText is what's going to be showing here in your invitation as far as the contacts that show. I'm scrolling to, I'm sorry, I did that really fast. I do that often, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to the student information screen. Sorry. This is where you are student information. You want to go into the invitation to ARD meeting 1. So the first screen for the invitation to ARD meeting. Recently, well, in the past couple of years, this screen name got changed. It used to be called the Notice of ARD. We still refer to it as the Notice of ARD, but AKA the invitation to the ARD meeting is what this is called. So right now, that is screen number 9, but I don't really like to refer to screen numbers because they often change.
You're starting to lag.
I'm starting to lag. Okay. I apologize. I don't know how to fix that other than to ask y'all to bear with me. It could, again, it could be my Wi-Fi, your Wi-Fi, or the Zoom platform because it's being bogged down by everybody around the nation and around the world trying to use this as a platform right now.
Just kind of slow down the pace maybe a little bit.
Okay, okay, gotcha. Slowing down the pace. I apologize. When y'all need to chime in and say that to me, please do, because I do kind of get lost in things. And I will tell you right now, if you see how long it's taking for my screen to respond, that's not a good indicator for me. Yeah, so I'm not gonna freak out. I'm gonna hit refresh.
Ms. Knuckles, if you're there, can you repeat what you said? You're going in and out. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, you're going in and out as I'm trying to listen to you. I think you asked me to repeat something. I'm not sure what you asked me to repeat. Guys, are y'all seeing my face now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why my screen share is now saying the host has disabled attendee screen sharing. I'm working with Casey now. She's trying to fix that for me, and it looks like she's done that for me. Thank you, Miss Bland. Okay, does everybody see my screen now? Can y'all just audio say yes?
Yes,
I can see it.
Okay. Okay, sorry guys for these difficulties. I appreciate your patience. It's frustrating for all of us because I want you to have this information. Okay, so here's my screen share. I am now on the first screen of the invitation to ARD meeting. Invitation to ARD meeting 1. The very first checkbox says check if applicable. and it gives this explanation that basically is saying you need to check this box if the student is an adult student. It's saying that, hey, we're going to give this to the parent or guardian of an adult student to make them aware that there is an ARD meeting. It does not constitute an invitation. It is simply, or create the right for they're attending the meeting. It is simply letting them know that there is a meeting for their adult student. So if your student is 18 years or older, you need to be checking that box.
Ms. Knuckles, are we still requesting the 6th and 7th graders to attend the ARDs because of what's going on?
Okay, we're not there yet. So this is just for 18 years or older. I'm going field by field. So that is in the next couple of fields. Give me a sec to get there, okay?
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Because as we get to this very next one, that's going to be important information. I'm going to select this. Underneath that, there is this field that says select verify the contact address to print on the report. This may not be something that you are aware of that even shows when you are going through the screens, but when it is printed, particularly if we move forward and have other options or features that are available, it is important that we go ahead and learn now how to use this feature. So click on this plus sign that is in front of that statement, select verify the contact address, so that it expands this field. You need to be selecting the first person that you are going to be inviting to this ARD. Typically, it's going to be the parent and or guardian. And then, of course, if you have adult students or students that are, as I think it was Ms. Chun that was asking about students aged in this district 12 or 6th grade, whichever comes first, we begin inviting them to the ARD. And their name is typically going to appear at the bottom when you would select them. But right now, you're going to go with your the first person that you're going to be inviting. You're going to need to redo this. After you get the rest of the notice created, you can come back and change this to print for additional people that you need to invite. One of the things that is clarified in the Sims Clerk's Bible, I call it, that Amy Gomez provides to you guys, is that if parents are separated or divorced, each parent is entitled to receive that notice of ARD unless there is a court order that is in that student's cumulative file on campus that says that only one parent has the educational decision-making rights. Then both parents should be invited. So you're going to select the person that you want this notice to go to, and then you have to click Save up here at the top. Notice it reminds you in red. If there's something in red on an eSPED screen, read it. It's guiding you to important information. This says click Save after you select the contact or the student. So I'm going to hit Save. You're not going to notice anything different on your screens right now, but it will be important in the end process. The next step is to indicate what additional invitations are being sent. So again, the question that was just asked about, are we still inviting students aged 13 to 17? Well, in this district, we began inviting them in 6th grade or 12 years old, whichever comes first, to begin discussing transition. So you can click that box up here for the student age 13 to 17. But actually what we're asking is that when you're inviting those students, you can go ahead and click this other box as well. You could click both if you want to, but I would suggest clicking this other box and put the student's name. Again, here is your reminder, if they're at least in 6th grade or 12 years or older. And then this is also, once this print is printed and given to a student, this is where that student would sign acknowledging their receipt. This is the practice in SAISD at this time. If you have parents, again, divorced parents or separated parents, this would be, I would check this box for the student. If they're one of those in this category right here, 6th grade or 12 years old and above, and let them sign next to that field. And then here in the other field, you need to be putting the name of the other parent. And then you need to flip that. When you send it to one parent, parent 1, you need to put parent 2's name and other, and vice versa. Now we go to the date that this initial notice, this first notice, is being sent or mailed. The date that it's being sent or mailed right now is the date that must be at least 5 days prior to the date of the meeting itself. So this date right here is the one that has to be 5 days prior to the, at least, sorry, 5 days prior to the meeting. Best
Okay,
practice, yes.
I have a question, Ms. Knuckles.
Uh-huh.
For those that were scheduled for last week, that are rescheduled for this week, obviously that's not 5 days. So what happens at that point? The parent just signs that little box on the invite that says they'll waive the 5 days of not getting the notice?
If that was agreed to, and this notice was done verbally, I would ask for further guidance from your the team that serves your campus, either the coordinator or the director, as to, I'm not sure how those were scheduled. It was probably done by calling the parents, and whether or not the date that that phone call was made should be indicated in this first field. If they were making calls last week, chances are they were given 5 days notice.
They weren't, I actually just started making phone calls today for them, so no one's made any phone calls for those that were scheduled last week.
Well, if they were just scheduled, but a parent wasn't contacted, then they were just put on a
No,
calendar.
I had already scheduled them on the calendar with the parent before all this came about.
Right, so y'all are rescheduling at this point.
Correct, last week. They were scheduled for last week.
Right, and now you're scheduling them to happen when?
This week.
So you're calling them this week and you're asking them this week to have the meeting?
Yes, I called one today and we're having it on Friday.
If that has been the guidance that your coordinator and or director have given you, then simply indicate, they need to indicate on the last screen where they sign. The box needs to be checked. Well, and I'm using sign with air quotes, that the 5 days was waived. And I'll ask you to reach out to your coordinator and or director for further guidance about those timelines.
Okay, and you
Please, moving forward, allow Ms. Knuckles to complete this training. If you have any questions, please type in the chat or email your coordinators and directors. We have to allow her to finish this training on time. So please save your questions, put them in the chat, and we will address them as they come up, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sultan. These second and third dates that are sent or mailed, are the second and third contact attempts, or I'm sorry, successful contacts that you have made with the parent, those that you are going to be documenting later on another screen. I'm going to show you how to do that here in a bit, but the second and third fields right here, those are when those contacts were made, and we'll get a little bit more information on whether those were successful attempts or not, and when to go ahead and put those dates in there. But clearly, as you do this the very first time, you're not going to have a second and third attempt. You enter those as on the dates that you're making those contacts with the parents. And then below here, it simply has a statement: you are notified of an admission, review, and dismissal ARD committee meeting to discuss your educational program or that of your child. We encourage you to attend the meeting as your involvement is an important part of the planning process. Now we're getting to the date, the time, the room, and the place. So I have in the updated how-to. Typically, you guys know that this is the date the ARD meeting is scheduled for. You can use your calendar here to pop in and select that date, or you can simply manually enter it in the field. The time, where the meeting, at the time the meeting is scheduled for, make sure to put AM or PM. And then the room. Typically, the room is going to be something like this. Wherever your ARDs are typically held. That's the standard operating procedure, the room where the ARD is going to be held. Right now, you have a couple of options. If you're going to be conducting this in a Zoom meeting, I would suggest putting the meeting ID, the join code, in that field, because that is actually called a room. And the place would be sorry. zoom.us/join, and then they would have this join code right here. They're going to be given further instructions. If a parent has agreed over the phone, you would have contacted the parent if you're holding this via Zoom, and they're going to know all this information because you've given it to them on the phone or because you've given it to them in an email address. You're going to be providing them with instructions on how to get to Zoom and to launch the Zoom platform and to join the meeting. And then place, typically that's going to be your school campus. But again, this is different times. I would suggest you using this zoom.us/join. Otherwise, it would be the campus if it's just your standard type of meeting. If you're doing it on a telephone conference, if your parent is more comfortable holding this just by calling in and everybody is, you can still do that through a Zoom meeting. They simply are participating via phone only. But there's other options if you want to put the telephone number in the room and just put teleconference Zoom. I'm sorry, teleconference telephone meeting, that's fine too. If you want to do it that way. There's a couple of options, but don't stray too far off the path. Again, these two examples of whether you're video conferencing or doing it through a telephone conference call, those will be in the how-to that will be posted. But use your common sense, and or you can email me if you have a question. I'd be more than happy to help you out. So the purpose of the meeting, these are self-explanatory for the most part, but I'm going to walk through each of these because sometimes people get a little confused as to what to check, what not to check. You select all that are appropriate for the meeting that you're going to be holding. So the very first one says discuss at your request. That means the parent's request, any educational or related service that is not proposed below. It is a best practice to select this at least for your annuals, because parents need to have the platform to suggest other things. We need to be prepared for that if they are indicating that they want to discuss something else. The second statement says initiate special education services if your child meets eligibility. This is checked only for initial ARDs. Again, it says initiate, it's kind of self-explanatory. The third statement, review your child's program, including the results of any new evaluations. So this should be checked for all ARDs because we are always reviewing our child's program. Yes, it's also checked if we're reviewing new evaluations, but that's not the only time it's checked. We are always reviewing the child's program. The same with the next statement, develop and or review the individual education program for your child, the IEP. Again, every time we hold an ARD, we're reviewing and or developing the IEP. So that should be checked every time. The next statement, consider ESY, which means extended school year, and it tells you right here, we must address this annually. So this at least, if this is an annual, it has to be checked. But remember, we also have ARDs in between the annual where we're only discussing perhaps extended school year. So if that's the purpose, one of the purposes of the meeting, then it would be checked. But it must be checked if it is an annual ARD. The next option is review of existing evaluation data, or read, R-E-E-D, read. If it is a read, then you are checking that box. The other option is where people like to often use this to add further clarity. I want you to know this is an annual review. Or I want you to know this is a manifestation, determination, review, or MDR. Don't just use MDR. Parents don't know that lingo. That's teacher speak, SPED speak. So if you want to add further clarity right here, or if it's a different reason, you want to give further explanation, then use this other field. I'm going to move to the right-hand column, consideration of post-secondary goals and transition services. You would check that again for any students that are hanging out right here where we're talking about transition, which is for any annual where the ARD is for a 6th grade student or 12-year-old or above, and or any other ARD for those students where transition planning is going to be discussed. The next option is discuss graduation. We begin discussing graduation criteria in 8th grade ARDs because we're preparing those students, part of their schedule and their choices. CTE especially, we're talking about putting them in classes that are in alignment with their transition, post-secondary transition plan. So we begin discussing graduation plans in the 8th grade annual. So 8th grade and high school students should have this box checked for all annuals and any ARDs between annuals where graduation is discussed. The next option, discuss the transfer of rights at the age of majority. We're required to discuss transferring the transfer of rights beginning, really we should begin at age 16, because at age 17 we begin discussing, we're required to let them know at least a year before they turn 18 that, hey, these are the rights that you inherit as a student who has a disability. So best practice is to check this box when you have an annual for a 16, 17, 18-year-old. Those are the older than 18, the rights have already transferred, so you don't need to do that. And or any ARD for those students where we're going to be discussing the transfer of rights. And that may very well be when if you're just having an ARD where you're talking specifically about post-secondary transition. The next option, propose to initiate or change the educational placement. So this word initiate, again, if we are initiating services, we're going to be changing their placement in that, even if it's a mainstream student, it's an instructional setting regardless. It's a change from the norm because we have an IEP in place. So if it's an initial, you're checking this box, and or if it's an ARD where we're talking about changing their educational placement, you check this selection, this option. If you're proposing to initiate, again, that's a clue, or change other elements of the provision of faith, free and appropriate public education. Any other types of changes are going to be, that are going to be made as far as FAPE, then this box would be checked. If it's an initial, you must check this box. And then the final option here says propose disciplinary change of placement. So then maybe an FBA, a BIP, and this is also where we talk about a manifestation determinations. If that's the case, then you also would check that box. I'm going to scroll down to now the following persons have been asked to attend the meeting. What I have checked here that you're seeing on your screen now, these are the minimum required participants. So we know we have to have the parent. If they're aged 12 and or 6th grade or older, then we need to include the student. Special ed teacher is a requirement, general ed teacher is a requirement, and we know the district representative, which is typically your campus administrator, are those that are required to attend. These other folks are required in many instances for certain students, but these that are checked right now are the bare minimum. And the others are self-explanatory. If you're inviting the counselor to attend, if you're inviting the teacher, the visually impaired, teacher, the auditorily impaired. If the student is VRAI, those are not optional. Those people have to be invited. Before I go into this other field right here, I'm going to direct your attention to the second column. Under district representative, we see career and technology representative. Again, that's going to be a requirement when we have annuals for students in 8th grade and above at the minimum. LPAC representative, if your student is an ESL student, then an LPAC representative is required to be in the annual. Assessment personnel, if this is a read, open, closed, or where new assessment is being requested, then assessment personnel must be included. Speech therapist or pathologist, your early childhood representative, at the request of the parent, that says initial only, so just read what it says. And then agency representative, and if we're inviting an outside agency, say it's the caseworker for the student out of Alamo Local Authority could be involved, we would need the parent consent, and there is a go button here. I'm not going to go into that right now, but if you need that specific information at a later time, feel free to contact me. Now I'm going to come back to this other section. We often know that not everybody is listed here, and we often are a little hesitant about what to include in this box. Simply realize that we only list people that are invited, that the district is inviting. We're not listing if the parent's inviting an advocate, that's on the parent. The parent is asking that person to attend. This is where we list who we as a district have invited to attend. So you may have special education central office staff. This could be your coordinator that supports your campus, or a program specialist that supports your campus, even a director at times. You don't specify names. And in this case, you don't necessarily, for central office staff, even specify their specific role, because we know that, for instance, if I have invited a director, oftentimes they may have a conflict and need to assign that to their coordinator to attend. So try not to be too specific when it comes to noting your central office staff. This is where you would indicate if an interpreter has been invited. You must have an interpreter at least for students who are ESL students. If the student receives PT, then your physical therapist must be invited to the annual. OT, the same, occupational therapy. Your APE, your adaptive PE teacher, must be invited. If the student has dyslexia, then we must be inviting the dyslexia representative. There are times where a transition specialist is appropriate. And when a parent has indicated that they're going to be bringing legal representation, you're going to need to collaborate with your special education central office staff first, but this may also be where you simply note district legal representative, so that the parent is aware that we are going to have a legal representative there. But again, collaborate with your special education central office staff first. Again, do not list roles that the parent is inviting here, and only list roles or positions. Do not list specific names. Do not list specific names, only roles. Okay, I'm going to go to the next screen. The next screen right now, I'm going to kind of breeze through. This is not something that we currently utilize often. It is when specific members are excused from attending, or we're proposing that they be excused from attending, either because they're, say it's not an annual and we're not going to be addressing their particular area at this point. So I might be having an ARD to address STAR accommodations. I wouldn't need my OT or PT. This could be how you address that. It's not necessary that you do that. And then this is another, you can read on the second page what this, or the second screen, 1A, this bottom half of that. At this point, we don't use this a bunch. I'm going to move on. So I'm going to move on to the next screen, which is invitation to ARD meeting 2. This very first little blurb at the top really is saying that parents are given a copy of the procedural safeguards in their understandable language where it's feasible. So we're below that. Who are we giving that copy to? We're putting the name, not parent. We're not putting the word parent. We're putting the actual parent's name and or the adult student's name, guardian's name, whatever the case may be. And remember, if you're giving it to 2 different parents because they're separated or divorced, you need to change that here as you make your subsequent notices for those people. And then it should be sent home or attached to the email, as it may be, with the first notice that is provided. And so that is the date that would go in here. Whenever that first notice is sent, that is when we're providing them the copy of the procedural safeguards. Remember, for initial ARDs, you're also giving them a copy of the guide to the ARD process. And then for questions contact, this is where the case manager's name should be. So you're going to enter in the case manager's name, the campus phone number, and the case manager's email address. It could be some SIMS clerks end up putting their information in here if that's the practice at your campus, because that's primarily who is in charge of your ARD schedule. That's a campus decision, and that's fine. And then this understandable language piece, if you read it carefully, it says, if the native language or other mode of communication is not a written language, but it is common practice, even though Spanish, for instance, is a written language. For clarity, we are going ahead and completing this piece of the notice. The invitation was sent in the parent's understandable language, and then you're putting the name of the language. Spanish is probably the most common that y'all see. Just writing Spanish here is not going to cause that field to print. You need to make sure you select the box in front of it. And then you need to go ahead and make sure that the invitation of ARD was translated orally or by other means to the parent or the adult student in his or her native language or other mode of communication. You're putting the date that that call was made and the name of the person who did that oral translation. We do have the option when we archive to have this information archived in Spanish. It will print in Spanish, and all of this text that shows on your screen that we don't type in, so we call this static text, like this very first blurb up here that I've highlighted in blue, all of that will be in Spanish. Anything that you type in the fields is not translated in the written copy, but there is enough. Most of the information on this page, on these pages, are static, and really the notice of ARD, when we print it in a Spanish translated copy, it's understandable for a parent who's a Spanish only speaker, even if we're not reading it to them. The parent, adult student verified to the translator that he or she understands the content. Basically, I'm giving it to them in Spanish. I've called them, had somebody speak to them in Spanish about the notice of ARD, and they have verified that they understand, yes, there's going to be an ARD for this purpose, this date and time, etc. The next fields are, please return this form to. So typically, standard operating procedures, when we're in school, we send this home. This is mailed home the first time, and we're putting who we want this to come back to. Typically, that would be the SIMS clerk, so we're putting the name of the SIMS clerk or the case manager, and then the position, whether it's a Sims clerk or the case manager, would go in the next field. School address and the city, state, zip would be the next fields. The next piece is not anything that we fill out. It says, please check the appropriate statements below. Right now, this is printed and sent home. We're not checking anything for the parent. You could be guided at this point, given this particular circumstance that we're in with the school closures, that the parent is agreeing to the time and they are not able to attend, or they would like to have it. Any one of these other options, you may be guided by your coordinator or program director. Your program director, that it is okay for you to manually check these after the fact. But initially, those should not be checked right now. They need to be left blank. This information, the date and the time, is automatically generated from what you entered in on the first screen. If you change it there, it will change here, and vice versa. If you change the date or the time here, it will change on the first screen as well. These date fields are simply when they will populate. They're a date field that comes after the parent's signature field when the notice is printed. We don't know when the parent is signing that, so we don't enter in that date. I'm going to go to next. This is one of the most critical pieces, is particularly right now, as far as documenting your efforts and your due diligence of getting in contact with the parent and having them been afforded, noting their opportunities to participate in the ARD meeting. That is optimal, and that is the expectation and the hope that we always have parents participating, and or we're giving them every opportunity to be able to participate. Not always possible. So this is why we make sure that we're documenting our due diligence and all of our efforts here. So we do not use this, I'm including 3 choices. We don't have the luxury of providing 3 choices. That's why standard operating procedure, best practice is you're calling and making contact with that parent before you even select that first date. So it eliminates going back and forth. I'm scrolling really just to this bottom half. We're recording our contact attempts. So here, yes, you may have 1 or more people that are making these contacts. In the best case scenario, you would have a Sims clerk and your case manager making contact with the parent. The person who's doing the bulk of that is the name that can go here, or the person who makes the first contact is the name of the person that can go here, and then their position right here. We have a place for documentation and comments where you can specify other people that have been involved in making contact. Here, include the record of contact attempts on the invitation of the ARD meeting report. Check that box. This is going to go to the parent, and at least our first contact attempt when we send it out to them may be noted on here if we've been able to make contact with them successfully, either through email or the phone. So I'm going to give you an example. I have called parent. Parent has answered their phone because I have a good number for them. Yes, I know a lot of this sounds best case scenario. In some instances, it sounds too good to be true. I've got a good number for the parent. I call them, they answer the phone. They tell me, yes, I can make it on that day and time. I can participate at that day and time. So they have confirmed the results here. I can type in new and put the results of that. So you can type in new, and it only limits you, it only gives you 80 characters. And in many cases, that is not enough to really capture the essence of your effort. So that is why it gives you the option here. So I'm simply saying, giving you the biggest thing, which is parent confirmed, and then see the comments below. And I'm going to click save. I'm checking perhaps that was typically with your first contact, we're going to be sending that via US mail. That may not be our standard operating procedure right now. These may be emailed and or, as someone was suggesting earlier, phone calls may be made. Your subsequent attempts, you have up to 6 that you can document with dates here. However, remember, if you do above and beyond that, if you do more than that, because you've had to go through exhaustive measures, just realize that you can use this documentation of your comments. If you have more than one type of contact on one day, simply put in that date, and then you're going to detail your information on those contacts or those attempts below in that documentation comments text box. Remember, you have to have at least 3, and they should be successful contacts, not simply attempts. I called, left a voicemail, called, didn't get an answer. Last resort, that you can those should certainly be documented here, but we really need 3 successful attempts, and those you can refer to your coordinator and or your director for your campus for further guidance on that, as well as the FAQs and the other COVID guidance that we've gotten as we're in school closures right now. So I'm going to show you what this particular text box, I'm going to open it up by clicking on the text box itself and give you the example that I put in here for you. So I made an attempt on 3/25/2020 at 11 a.m. I put the name of the person that called, Miss Case Manager called, Miss Fake Mom. I put in the number. See how much detail I'm giving you? Because oftentimes we know that we have wrong numbers, and that could be of some importance at a later time if we hold an ARD and parent ended up having a new number that we didn't have access to. Left a voicemail that an encrypted email would be sent to fakemom@gmail with further information. Then the notice was sent via encrypted email to fakemom@gmail. Then I actually had a successful contact because at 3 o'clock that same day, Mom returned the call. I know, it's a perfect world, guys. And she agreed to the date and time of the ARD and to participate via Zoom, online teleconferencing platform or video conferencing, whatever y'all agree to. I made another attempt on the 27th at 11 a.m. I called the same number, did not give an answer. I could not leave a voicemail because the voicemail box was full. I followed up with an email reminder of the date and time and the information on how to access and log into the Zoom meeting. And then, oh, again, perfect world situation. Later that day, Mom replied to my email and she confirmed that she received it, that she has the Zoom information, and that she still plans on participating. And then the third contact really should be the day before as a reminder to the parent. Reminder call was made to Fake Mom. At the same number, she confirmed participation via Zoom. We walked through how to access and log into the Zoom meeting. She was able to access the site and understands how to join the meeting. I know that seems like a lot of detail, but right now in particular during these uncertain times, this information could be very important at a later date. You want to make sure that you hit save so you don't lose that information and return here. Now I'm going to take you in how to print and archive this notice. Amy guides our clerks to not to archive this until actually you've held the ARD, and then instead of having 3 different notices archived, you just really have one that notes all 3 attempts that have been made, or each separate attempt, and that's fine, but you need to go to the same place really to print it as well. I teach you how to go through this print archive tab. I know, it's very self-explanatory. So when you go to this tab up at the top where you see save, previous, next, students reports, preview, hit the print archive button. And this is where you're going to select the report that you want, which is the invitation to ARD meeting. Do not hit automatically archive. This right here, mail the document, is going to be the option we use when we're emailing these in an encrypted fashion. That's not the first way I'm going to show you right now, though. I'm going to get you the hard copy first. So select invitation to ARD meeting, and you're going to hit print final copy. Your language is defaulted to English, but remember earlier I said if you needed another language, these are the languages that are available. And for our purposes in a notice of ARD, they are fairly self-explanatory with the exception of the information that we type in, which is limited. Most parents, even though they're reading in another language, understand a date and a time that is in English. Hit print final copy. Print draft copy will print the watermark draft behind it, and that's not what you want. You want print final copy. So click that button. This gives you the opportunity to now view the entire notice of ARD before it's archived or before it's printed, before it's emailed to a parent. Preview it now, catch any errors now, and make those corrections. If you see an error, simply close the viewer and return into your notices. And then when you've made it, you can hit the print archive button again. I'm seeing that this is beautiful. This is lovely. See how my dates, each attempt is up here. This is where we selected who this is being sent to. That's where it is going to show up on your printed copy. This is what it looks like. All right. I see it's all beautiful. I want to print it. So hover right up here on the right-hand corner, and you will see the option to print. Hit print. I'm not going to take you through print right now because clearly I'm at home and that's not helpful to you. But typically you would have your printer listed right here, and then you would hit the print option at the bottom. When it is time to archive this, so typically, again, Amy guides our SIMS clerks to do this after the ARD has been held so that all three attempts and all the contact notices are on one final document. Then come in here and put the date that the ARD was scheduled for. I'm putting this invitation the date the ARD is scheduled for, and that's easy enough. This is going to go into this student's archive, so there's no need for me to put the student's name or initials here. I simply want to give you the best look at what this is. It's an invitation for this ARD, and if you need to, this is an annual. I want to file that in the correct folder for our purposes this year. It's in the ARD 2019-2020 folder. I do not worry about ARD type at this point, and I click the archive button. So invitation underscore the date that the meeting is held underscore and the type of meeting it was is fine. That's a good way to name your document, or to the comment on your document, sorry, and then click OK. So now your document has been archived. I'm going to take you back. I'm going to close out this tab. I'm back into my notices screen. I want you to be able now to send this in an encrypted email. Remember, when we do this, we are sending it only to ourselves. We're not sending it directly to the parent. We need to know that the password and everything checks out before I'm sending it to a parent. So I'm clicking invitation to ARD meeting. but this time I want to mail the document. As soon as I check this box, this option is going to be showing down here next to the reports box. It says reports selected for printing will also be emailed. Separate email address or separate addresses in the CC list with commas. Do not enter spaces. So you have to create the password. Your campus may have a standard password that they use. Y'all may use, say, the mascot in 2020. For our purposes here, I'm putting capital SAISD 2019. I want it to be sent to, that's a fake email address. I want it to be sent to me. Sorry, it's going to go to that fake email address. And then list anybody else that you want it to be sent to, which really should just be sent to you because you're the one that's checking it out. I simply can't change it. Your email address, if you're creating this, should be in the to column, and you shouldn't need to be CCing it to anybody else because this is a test case right now. That's a fake account. I need to put myself in the CC. And then hit print final copy. And it should give me confirmation here in a minute that it's done that. And then it goes to the screen where I can then print and or archive. I'm going to go ahead and archive this again just for good measure. And if you ever need something that you've archived more than once, if you need those deleted, simply email me and I can send you the procedure for that. I'm now going to go to my email. I clicked a new tab. I'm going to open my email. And I know I've got like a minute left here, guys. Give me a second. I want to be able to walk you through what this looks like. So I have an email sitting here that says print at eSPED. I'm going to open that up. And it has the report that's been attached. It says unscannable extraction. I'm going to have to see what that means. Yeah. So I'm going to, it says password protected. So I'm going to enter in that password. And there's my notice. So when you're sending this to parents, so now you have it in your email. You should then download this to your own desktop. You may have a folder on your desktop that just says notices, and you can retitle it to the initials of your student. You need to send a separate email to the parent that has the password to open it. You cannot include the password to open the notice in the same email that the notice is attached to. That invalidates the encryption. That invalidates us sending this in a secure method. So 2 separate emails need to be sent. My suggestion would be to send them the first email, say I'm going to be attaching, sending a second email with the attached Notice of ARD. In order to open that document, you need the following password. You could also include the information for how to log into Zoom or the phone number, make sure that they give you the right phone number to call, etc. in that email. And then the second email would be where you attach it. Okay, it is 3 o'clock and I believe that's our time. At this point, I'm going to try to stop my screen share and try to come back into this. And what were the guidelines for password use? It sounded like she said we can use the standard password used campus-wide. It may be that you're adding the students. It could be that you're using the I don't know, is everybody still there?
Okay, everybody. Jennifer is having trouble getting back in, but the training is pretty much it's the end of the training. So what what's going to happen is we're going to save this recording, and then we're going to post a how-to on eStar eDocs of how to do the notices for remote learning. If you have any questions, though, go ahead and send them by email. You can send them to Jennifer Knuckles, and you can copy your director or coordinators on those questions, and we answer them as soon as we can. Okay, is there any questions about that?